How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network, as your Pitt Panthers are coming off the backs of a ridiculous 63-7 victory over the Virginia Cavaliers, and then they did have a bye this past week, so they're well rested up heading into a Thursday night showdown with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. But we wanted to give you something a little bit special here. So in this case, we've got a spotlight on some of the freshmen that have played a key role for the Panthers this season and the impact that they're making. The new guys that, you guys have become our recruits and come into this dynasty and made a big role. So Paris Ford, the Pittsburgh product, 28 tackles, 3 interceptions as a starting free safety, had an unbelievable season. He was our top recruit coming in, and he has been sensational. Has the 6'1", 180-pound freshman. You can pause and take a look at his rings there. Kaiser Artis Scott, he's a big recruit. He came in as a 4-star. He's been playing as kind of our dime corner, our number 4 corner, but we played a lot of nickel and dime packages, so he's seen the field a decent amount. He's got 21 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. He has 1 sack as well. He's been very solid. We've used him blitzing off the edge a lot. He's made a lot of tackles in the open field and done a really nice job for us. He's really fast. You can see he's lightning. He's a guy that I could see being one of our return men moving forward. He's a good tackler, good play recognition, really good jumper. He's decent in coverage as well, so he's done really well for us. Barry Jenkins, the Washington, D.C. product, fantastic linebacker, 4-star. He's come in and played a huge role. Of course, he got a big bump early in the season with our random progression generation and additional 4 overall points. So he's sitting at 80 overall already, which means he's gotten to play a lot. We've rotated him in. He's not really a starter, but he does play quite a bit. So he's got 16 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 sack, and 1 pass deflection on the season, playing in that outside linebacker role. You can see he's very solid. Of course, good speed. His tackling is very solid. He's just a well-rounded player. He's pretty fast for a linebacker, I would say. Decent strength. He's okay in coverage. Definitely could work on that a little bit for our outside linebackers, but he's been very good, as has Jason Jordan, another big recruit, 4-star that came in. He's not as highly rated, but he's very athletic. There's no doubt about that. He's got 10 tackles, 2 for a loss. He's played as well. You can see he's good quickness, good acceleration. His tackling is very solid. He's really good in coverage, which is nice, especially in a zone coverage role, but he can play in man as well. Decent hit power, and he's been very solid. Darren Toth, the big boy, 6'5", 310-pound freshman out of Altoona, PA, came in as a 4-star. He's done well. He's come in, you don't expect your defensive tackles to make a lot of plays, but he's got 3 tackles for a loss and a sack. He's been very good and someone that I expect to have a bigger role moving forward. He's already slotted in as our number 3 defensive tackle. Both of our other defensive tackles are young, so he'll just work into kind of a rotational mix. We've got Sean Wolfgang as well. He's got 3 tackles, 2 for a loss, and a sack. Really strong defensive end. He was a gem that we found. Came in as like a 70 overall, but turned out to be actually like a 76. Was fantastic. Just really athletic, which is good to see. He's a little bit undersized, but he uses his quickness and his ability to get off the block to make a really good role for us, and he's someone that I think can have a big role moving forward. And then, of course, another guy you can't say enough about, Jay Bump, the kicker. He's been 11 for 12. He doesn't have the strongest legs, so that's why the longest field goal he's made has been 44 yards, but he's been very reliable. We've put him in positions to make, to have makeable field goals, and he's done just that for us. He's got great accuracy. That's why he's 11 to 12 on the season. A player that's, played a big role for us, especially hitting that late field goal to beat Boston College. So very reliable in that regard. Now, going back to the NCAA here, just hopefully you enjoyed the little Pitt recap there, but going back to the NCAA, the games that took place in the week that we were off: Florida State beat Buffalo in the ACC, Clemson obliterates Wake, Boston College loses to Tennessee, Duke does beat Virginia, and Louisville blows out Syracuse for the Orange's first ACC loss of the season. Big game for Lamar Jackson there. Around the NCAA, Washington takes care of Oregon 52-20. Arkansas State stays unbeaten, beating South Alabama. Wyoming knocks off unbeaten New Mexico 21-10. So New Mexico no longer a Cinderella story. TCU beats Oklahoma. Oklahoma State 45-42 over Texas Tech in a tight battle. Kansas State knocks off Texas 31-24 in overtime. Some other big games: Notre Dame just escapes Navy 22-17. Arizona knocks off unbeaten USC 28-24. Sam Darnold actually got knocked out of that game injured, which definitely hindered USC in that matchup. Auburn went down 29-26 to Arkansas. Ole Miss obliterates Texas A&M, who just came off a big victory over LSU, but Ole Miss knocks them off 30-10. Stanford upsets UCLA 28-23, so a lot of upsets. And LSU, who we were just talking about, knocks off Alabama 42-35. An unbelievable game, back and forth, back and forth. Fournette with, I think, 3 touchdowns in that game, and a huge victory for Bama. So players of the week, Jake Browning for Washington, 446 yards passing, 25 rushing, 6 total touchdowns. Reggie Walker for Kansas State, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, and a fumble recovery in that upset win for Kansas State over Texas. So 2 really big performances by those guys, the Purple People Eaters in those matchups. And then in the ACC, DeAndre Francois and Jacob Pugh, both with big matchups as Florida State with an easy win over Buffalo. Not the toughest of opponents, but 2 really good performances by those guys. And speaking of individual performances, here's how the Heisman leaders shake out right now. Deshaun Watson still atop the leaderboard. Lamar Jackson just behind him, but Myles Gaskin, the Washington halfback, with a 200-yard performance is now in the mix. J.T. Barrett, the Heisman winner from last year's back in, and Tywan Deal, Wisconsin running back, with 148 yards and a touchdown, making his case for the Heisman as well. So with Alabama losing, we've got a new number 2 in the clubhouse. Ohio State goes to number 2, as they and Clemson are the 2 remaining unbeatens as far as Power 5 teams are concerned. We got a Cinderella still hanging out, but Miami goes up to 3, LSU to 4, Penn State to 5, Bama 6, Washington 7. Your Pitt Panthers sitting down there at 12th. USC drops back to 9th, we can see, with their loss. Texas Tech back to 10th after losing to Oklahoma State, who jumps up to 13. Texas falls back to 15. So, with some various losses, we see some jostling around. Arizona's into the rankings now at 7-1. They're at number 20, and New Mexico drops back. But Arkansas State, that one unbeaten from the non-Power 5, just trying to sneak in and hopefully continue their Cinderella run. But if we look at the BCS rankings, you can see Miami's 4, Penn State's 5, and so on and so forth. Your Pitt Panthers sitting there at 12th. Maybe could they sneak in? They got late games coming up against Miami. If they win out possibly an ACC championship battle, it remains to be seen. Clemson looking to continue to stake their claim for the ACC title yet again as they go to number 16, Florida State. Herbstreit's actually taken the Seminoles, but with the way they've played this year, I just don't see them knocking off a Clemson team that has the best offense in the entire country and still a fantastic defense. Texas Tech is going to go into Manhattan, Kansas, that is, to take on the Kansas State Wildcats. Herbstreit has Texas Tech winning, but Kansas State flying off the backs of that upset victory. Who knows? Maybe they can knock off another powerhouse in the number 2 offense in the country in Texas Tech. TCU goes into Waco to take on Baylor, who's 5-2. TCU 6-2. So that should be a big high-scoring game. Anytime 2 Big 12 offenses get together, it's going to be a high-scoring matchup. But I think TCU will win. Herbstreit has Baylor. Number 20, Arizona, who just beat USC, is taking on UCLA. I think UCLA will win. Herbstreit has Arizona, so remains to be seen. But for your Pitt Panthers, they are going to Georgia Tech to take on the Hornets Yellow Jackets, in Atlanta. It's going to be a big matchup between the Panthers and an underachieving Georgia Tech team. But the tough thing about playing them is they run that option. It's so very tough to really judge how your team's going to play against that. You really have to prepare incredibly differently for that. I think the Panthers have a lot to be aware of. Georgia Tech, has a really strong offense. They got a really good running back leading that attack and a smart quarterback as well. So a rush offense, and the Panthers have really struggled against the run lately, even though they have the 13th ranked run defense in the country. That's been hindered by the last couple of games. Boston College ran all over them. Virginia Tech ran pretty solidly against them. So it'll be tough to go against there, but the Panthers will take on Georgia Tech team, who you can see they've been very inconsistent, but they haven't really had any signature wins. They've beat a Boston College team that's underachieved, a Virginia team that's underachieved, and an FCS squad. They lost to anyone on their schedule with a winning record. Tulane, TCU, Louisville. They have played a tough schedule, there's no doubt about that, but they haven't beaten anyone, so I don't think there's much stress for the Panthers in losing here, though prime time at home, Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta you know the Yellow Jackets are going to be fired up for this one, especially with a ranked opponent coming in. But they do have their quarterback, Jordan. He's not a good passer, so they definitely don't want to get into a situation where he has to pass. You can see how poor he's been, but Green is unbelievable. He's got 938 yards already on the season, 10 touchdowns. He's a guy that can run all over you. Matthew Jordan, though, we can see really struggled. He's passing at like 35%, and he's got 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, so he's not had a great season under center. He's not made for that, but he does run well. They've got 3 guys over 500 yards already, led by J.J. Green, who is fantastic. He's a guy that can get a ton of yards. So what the Panthers want to do, take away those options, make Jordan beat them with his legs, because he's not the quickest, he's not the most elusive. So if the Panthers can shut down J.J. Green and leg it, then I think that'll speak very well for them, so they can try and stop Jordan, because he's a guy that, he's a quarterback. He may fumble a bit, you may rattle him a bit, and that would bode well for the Panthers. The Panthers, of course, will be led out by quarterback Ben DiNucci, who's had a solid season. He was, wasn't asked to do much in the last matchup, only 8 of 10, 105 yards and a touchdown, 7 carries for 48 yards as well. Darren Hall really had a breakout game in the last matchup, but they do have a 2-head monster now with Quadri Olison as well. So I think the Panthers offense just has too many weapons for this Georgia Tech defense to stop. And Georgia Tech, for all the running, the Panthers, I'm sure, will stack the box and try and make that quarterback throw and beat them. So hopefully the Panthers come away with the win. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win. What will the final score be? And, of course, stay tuned for a great matchup in prime time. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. We will see you at Georgia Tech. As always, hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.